I won. I can't believe it. I actually won. I never win anything, but this time was different. I looked at the numbers printed on the small slip of paper in my hand. Shaking, I, again, for the 100th time, checked my numbers against those on my computer screen. Yep, they matched. I won. I was going to be going to lottery headquarters first thing in the morning. I have no idea what I won, but it had to be something good. This lottery was a mystery. The state had started doing this a few months ago. There was, of course, the normal cash prize lottery, but this one was a bit different to spice it up. It could be anything. Last week it was a pricey mansion on the hills. The week before that it was an expensive exotic car. The week before that it was a month-long trip around the world. I didn't know what it was going to be exactly that I won, only that it had to be good. It just had to. I sat down and then stood up again. I won. Oh my god, I can't believe I won. I didn't sleep a wink. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I would imagine some other fantastic prize. I was too excited. I spent the night on my computer looking up all the past prizes for this lottery since it started. Each new page, each new prize, only made me that much more ecstatic. The morning came slowly, but eventually it did come, and I got in my car and made my way to the lottery headquarters. They greeted me and looked at my ticket and verified it. It was, in fact, a winner. So I said to the lottery chief that it ushered me into a side room. What happens next? What did I win? We don't know, he laughed. It's as much of a mystery to us as it is to you. 2 other people came in and wheeled in what looked like a bingo machine. All of those balls represent a prize. We spin it and what comes out is yours. They started to spin it. Time slowed down. Eventually a single ball made its way down the chute and plopped into the waiting hands of the man I was talking to. He held it up and looked at it. His face went pale. Well, he said at last, I didn't even know that was in there. He showed it to the other 2 and one of them left the room and the other looked uneasy. So I asked, more to break the silence than anything, what did I win? In due time, the man said, looking at his watch, his shoes, the other person in there. It didn't escape my notice that he wouldn't look at me. The door finally opened again and the other person had brought with them a giant of a man. He looked to be security or something. He took me by the arm and led me to another back room. There, in the centers of it, was a gallows. Now, wait just a minute, I sputtered out. I'm sorry, the chief said. The state decides this, and they figured there should be a few bad prizes in there as well, to, balance things out. The noose was placed around my neck, and I began to scream. A hood was placed over my head. You won a trip to the gallows, the lottery chief choked out. Enjoy your prize. And he pulled a lever. The floor beneath me opened, and I took full possession of my prize. It was a majestic home. I was so lucky that it was on Airbnb, and that there was a cancellation, so I was able to go there on my normal scheduled vacation. What made this home so breathtaking was its location and view. There was a large dam. It led to the creation of an artificial waterfall. Though artificial, it was no less beautiful. You could see this waterfall from the living room, the balcony, or the master bedroom. To add to the majesty, the only way to get to this home was across a wooden bridge. You see, it was nestled on an island in the middle of this river on the other side of the dam. So, during the day, it was only a short drive to the huge man-made lake created by the dam and all of the tourist areas that sprung up around it. By night, you had this waterfall and island home as a backdrop. It was paradise. The first 2 of my 5 days here were fantastic. This vacation was definitely one to remember. On the 3rd day, it started to rain, quite heavily. The rain soon brought with it some pretty substantial wind, so I decided not to venture out today. I would just sit in the living room and bask in the scenery. But the river, I noticed, was getting a little bit rowdy. I couldn't help but feel a bit uneasy. I had my face buried in a book when I heard it. A tearing kind of groaning sound. I opened up the front door and stood there in shock. The bridge, it had been washed away. I immediately called emergency services. They said they'd have a helicopter there to evacuate me as soon as the wind died down, and to remain indoors. I went back in and sat back down, looking again at the waterfall and the dam, but it did nothing to calm my nerves. It was then that it happened. Due to the wind, the sudden influx in rain, and some other long contributing factors, the dam gave way. I had a front row, or should I say bay window view, of an immense flood of water, several times taller than this house, heading directly for me. When the crashing colossal wave hit the house, I closed my eyes. I started working here about a month ago. I was immediately put on the register as one of the cashiers had mysteriously disappeared. Everybody assumed they found another job. It wasn't bad work, you know. Small town convenience store. Most people just stopped to gas up between a longer trip. Sometimes people would get some snacks or some lottery tickets. We had the normal wares for this kind of small store. Usual high-ticket items like drinks, cigarettes, snacks, and such, but also some items you'd find in a more traditional grocery store like boxes of cereal and baking goods. These were overpriced and obviously not high movers. So, on slower nights I would dust the shelves as they would accumulate quite a bit over time. Tonight was one of those nights. I was dusting and made my way to the back shelves. Tomato sauce, macaroni, and the like. In the midst of my dusting frenzy, I thought I caught some movement behind the items. I recoiled back, thinking it was a mouse or a rat. I cautiously cleared the shelves, but there was nothing there. But you could see a back room between some slots on this back wall. The walls seemed to be made of it. I peered in, but it was dark. I made a mental note to ask my boss about the back room, as I didn't even know it existed. Next night, while I was working, he showed up to do some paperwork and sat in his office. After the customers thinned out, I poked my head in. "Hey," I said. He looked up. "I was doing some light cleaning last night, and when I got to the back wall, something moved." "Something?" he repeated slowly. "Like vermin?" "I'll call the exterminator." "Yeah," I nodded my head in agreement, but it didn't seem to be coming from the shelf, more like the other side. You know, in the back room. "Back room," he repeated slowly. "We don't have a back room, other than the refrigerated storage." "Oh," I said. Just then another customer came in and I rung up her purchases. After she left, I went to the back wall again, moved the same stuff I had moved yesterday, and looked at the area between the slats. I put my eye up to it and, in shock, pulled away. An eye, a human eye, was peering back at me. I turned to run, but my boss was there blocking the exit. He was holding a baseball bat and hit me with it, knocking me out. When I awoke, I was in the back room. This time, the light was on. I looked around. There were two other people here, chains holding them to the wall. A door opened and my boss stepped in. "Don't bother trying to scream for help," he said. "I gave you a little concoction I have. It destroys your ability to speak and makes you weak as a kitten." He brushed aside my hair, looking at the lump from the bat inside. "You darn cashiers, always too nosy for your own good. Now I'll need to hire another one. If you keep it up, I'll run out of room back here." He shut the light off and left, the only light now coming through the slats on the back wall. My mouth was open, no sound escaped, but I was screaming my head off in my mind. I left the large office complex and shielded my eyes from the sunlight. Oh, my head. 4 hours of looking at a computer monitor and typing in appointments. But it was lunchtime now and time to forget about the rigors of work for at least an hour. I still hadn't decided what I was going to get to eat when I saw it. A line of about a dozen or so people had formed in front of a food truck. That was new. This was the first time I'd seen one here in the 5 years I'd worked here. There certainly was enough foot traffic in this area, so maybe this was a good thing. Judging by the happy faces and the people eating the sandwiches, it must be pretty darn good food as well. So I figured why not and got in line. Soon it was my turn to order. I took a shaved steak sandwich. The man, who identified himself as John, quickly made me one and handed it to me. "That's fresh meat," he said, beaming. "The freshest you'll find in our county." I paid him, thanked him, and made my way to a bench and dug in. It was the best steak sandwich I'd ever had. Lunchtime the next day found me again in line and ordering another glorious sandwich. This went on for a few weeks. More and more people flocked over. Eventually he had to turn some away because he ran out of ingredients. That weekend I was making breakfast and went out to get my newspaper. I finished the eggs and put them on my plate and sat down to eat. I opened up the paper and immediately dropped it. "Serial killer found," read the headline. The picture it showed was John, and there was another picture below it of him next to his food truck. I picked up the paper and read the article. I soon wished I hadn't. John would take his victims and butcher them, get rid of the remains via his food truck. I felt sick. I looked down at all the photos of the victims, 25 in all. Which ones of these had I eaten? 1, 2, all? I don't know what made me sicker. The fact that I'd been eating human flesh, or the fact that seeing a picture of that food truck made my mouth water. 3 o'clock. That's what the clock on my car said. I had to be there at 3:15 exactly, or there'd be no deal. I looked down the tracks. Darn train. How much longer could it be? I had to get there on time. I just had to. It had started a few days ago. There was a ransom note that came. It said, bring 20 grand on Thursday at 3:15 sharp. Otherwise, there'll be no deal. I panicked. How could I come up with that much money? I don't know, but I just had to. Carol, the thought of what would happen with her just terrified me. I emptied my bank account and took out advances in all my credit cards, cashed in my 401k, and that gave me just enough to pay the ransom, but it'd be close. Then I got stuck, waiting for the train to pass. 3:11. The last train car passed at 3:11. The gates began to raise. I gunned the gas and made my way to the meeting point. I slammed on the brakes and the car slid to a stop behind the prison. I breathed a sigh of relief. 3:14. I grabbed the money and ran into the side building, and there stood a man with a smart hat and tie. He was looking at his watch. Cutting it close, are we? He asked, looking up. I handed him the folder containing the money. He opened it and counted it. Okay, he said at last. This'll do. We'll keep her for now, but if in the future if we decide we need more, I'll be in contact. Good, I stammered out. Thank God. They were going to keep her. If I hadn't come up with a payment in time, they would have sent her back home. The thought of it sent chills down my spine. Ever since my wife was possessed by a demon, I've had these gentlemen keep her locked up for all our safety. She'd become very dangerous, and they were my last hope. Evidently, she was a handful for them as well, even though they were equipped to deal in this prison with violent people. Remember, Mr. Kingston, not a word of this arrangement to anyone, or else we'll send her back home. No, I said quickly. My lips are sealed. Thank you again. I sat back in my car, breathing a sigh of relief. I wouldn't be seeing Carol today after all. Thank God. My name is Jonathan. I run the Center for Paranormal Research. I founded it many years ago. I was curious as to what happens to us after we pass. Surely it wasn't the end. Over the years, our organization has collected many insane pieces of evidence of the existence of the paranormal. Using many different types of hardware and technology, we were able to document the existence of an afterlife, but only that it existed. I wanted more specifics. It seems, though, that spirits are untrusting of the living, or at least the living they don't know. I can relate. Having a team of strangers camp in my house, rummaging through all my stuff, wouldn't exactly put me on friendly terms with them either. Then, it happened. Carl, who was a fellow founding member, had gotten sick. A childhood illness resurfaced, and he didn't have long left. As odd as it seemed, we were both excited. We made plans that he would contact me and where and what to say. The day soon arrived, and Carl passed on. For days after, I eagerly awaited news from him. All of my equipment was ready. Those days turned into months and then years. I had continued on my research as normal, figuring we failed. It had been almost 15 years since then when I heard a knock at the door. I opened it, and there stood a young teenager. He was holding a box of chocolates in his hands. It was my favorite kind. I asked him what he wanted, and he leaned closer to me. Jonathan, it's me, Carl. I was taken aback, but let him in. Wait, I said, how? Reincarnation, he laughed. He told me he was 14 years old and had known since birth who he really was. We sat down, and he started to tell me all the specifics. Why did you take so long to contact me? I asked at last. Well, he said, laughing and pointing at himself. No one takes kids seriously. I had to be old enough so that it wouldn't be suspicious for me to be gone from home or school for a little bit. Unfortunately, it couldn't be helped. I'm sorry, it must have been hard not hearing from me all that time and waiting. I held my hand up and shook my head. Nonsense. You did just fine. And, he said, laughing, you should eat those chocolates. Do you know how much they cost? I'm just a teenager. I'm not a wealthy man like I used to be. He smiled. I laughed and took a couple of them. After minutes of continued conversation, I could feel something was wrong. My stomach, it hurt. It hurt real bad. I bent over in pain. Sorry, Jonathan, Carl said, leaning over. They don't normally do reincarnation, but you and your research, you were getting too close, and some higher-ups from the other side sent me back to silence you. As I lay dying on the floor, he gathered up his jacket and leaned down close to my face. Well, he said, looks like the roles are reversed. I'll see you in, 70 or so years. My vision went dark as he exited the front door.